What would you tell your kids to do? They said, Dad, like there's going to be loads of just job displacement.
Because I worked for Google for 10 years, they have enough money.
What if they didn't have money?
Train to be a plumber.
Really?
Yeah.
This is the guy they call the Godfather of AI. And the thing he's talking about here, the thing that he says you should be afraid of, is AI is coming for your job. More importantly, AI isn't just coming for your job, it's coming for all the jobs your kid may want to aspire to have. When asked what his solution is, he said, my kids don't have to worry about it because they're rich. When asked what should other people's kids do who aren't rich, he said, become a plumber. So his solution is become a plumber. So you, if you're afraid of losing your job, and your kids growing up in a world where they don't even have jobs they can aspire to because the AI is doing all of them, by then maybe the robots will be doing the plumber's jobs too, so who knows. His solution is become a plumber. My solution is buy Bitcoin. And I'm going to tell you why in this video. If you want to be what he said that he is, which is I'm already rich so I don't have to worry about it, your solution to this problem is buy Bitcoin. That's what this video is about. And that might sound silly. People say that you're crazy. How is buying Bitcoin gonna keep AI from taking your job? It has nothing to do with you buying Bitcoin helping you keep your job. It's about the way that money works and the fact that what happens in a world of AI, of massive productivity gains due to AI. Now, when you hear that term productivity gains, the little red flags should go off in the back of your brain, because the flip side of productivity gains is usually job loss. Massive productivity gains generated by the companies who create the AI or create the robots also means tons and tons of other companies using that AI to replace humans, and those humans losing their job, unceremoniously kicked out on the street. Now, there's another part of the interview right here that I'm going to show you where he talks about something that drives me crazy, that no one seems to understand or talk about the problem in the right terms or the solution in the right terms. All right, here you go.
And is there a wealth inequality issue here that will arise from this?
Yeah, I think in a society which shared out things fairly, if you get a big increase in productivity, everybody should be better off.
Mm.
But if you can replace lots of people by AIs, then the people who get replaced will be worse off, and the company that supplies the AIs will be much better off, and the company that uses the AIs. So it's going to increase the gap between rich and poor. And we know that if you look at that gap between rich and poor, that basically tells you how nice a society is.
This is the biggest part that drives me crazy when it comes to this conversation. Nobody talks about the actual crux of what's happening here. So what he said is, if you get a big gain in productivity, everybody should be better off. In theory, that should be true. Giant productivity gain, what that should mean is more efficiency, things get cheaper, companies can generate more output from less input. Now, like I said, the bad side of that is that means less labor input. They're paying human beings less to make their products and generate goods and services because they're using robots and AI to do it, so they can do it for cheaper. So prices should fall. Everyone should be better off. What's the reason why you're not better off if that happens? A, it's bad if you lose your job. What's the other main reason? The other biggest reason is we have a monetary system that will not allow that to happen. Prices cannot fall far enough to capture the true deflationary nature of a productivity increase that large. Why? Because we have a Federal Reserve that has a 2% inflation mandate for stable prices. The money supply must be increased to make sure we have 2% inflation, no matter how much deflationary technology or productivity gains advance with AI and the robots. Do you understand what that means? If there's a massive productivity gain that is deflationary, meaning things should get cheaper, they will print money into that deflationary environment. Deflation, not the bad Keynesian economist boogeyman deflation, not structural deflation. This is price deflation. Price deflation is prices coming down because technology, innovation, efficiency, productivity increase. That's a good thing for you and me because we hold money and the money goes farther if prices come down, all right? But what we know is they will print money into that environment and make sure that we don't actually see the productivity gains show up in the form of deflationary prices. So you can lose your job due to the AI, but you don't share in the productivity gains of the AI because prices don't come down enough for your money to go further the way it should if that productivity gain were to be realized in the form of your purchasing power going up, in the form of prices falling. Do you understand the problem? So the wealth inequality that he's talking about, all the gains only get funneled to the companies that create the AI and actually accumulate all the wealth, accrue all the wealth from selling it, and anybody who owns assets, because printing money is basically a two-sided coin effect. One side is the price of goods and services goes up. That's inflation. That's bad if you want to use money to buy things because everything's getting more expensive. What's the other side? The price of anything scarce and desirable, like assets, also goes up. So anything that right now is used as an asset, so gold, real estate, stocks, you see giant bubbles in all those things because there's more money in the system, and that more of that money is chasing those scarce, desirable assets, so they go up in price. So anybody who holds assets, i.e. the rich, get richer, and it becomes harder and harder for a normal person to acquire those assets to become rich. So you're basically getting squeezed from both ends. All the things you need to buy to live your life are getting more expensive, and all the things you'd want to buy to help you get rich and escape this problem are also getting way more expensive, and they get more expensive much, much, much faster. Scarce, desirable things go up in price much faster than even just consumer goods and stuff. So you're on this hamster wheel that's squeezing you from both ends, and you're running backwards. Like, it's literally impossible. But if you had a form of money that wasn't being debased, that couldn't be printed, that they weren't going to make sure inflated no matter what, even if you had this massive productivity gain that was deflationary in price terms, if you had a form of money that couldn't be printed, what that money does is it captures the gain, the productivity gain of innovation, technology, efficiency, because the money maintains its value in purchasing power terms as prices fall. So the money itself gets more valuable in purchasing power terms because prices are falling. When it comes to money, all values are relative. There's no inherent value in money as a denominator. Like if a new unit of currency were to be created, the only way to express the value of that currency is in what it can buy you in purchasing power terms. So what goods and services can I acquire for it? Therefore, I know relative to all other things what it's worth. That's a simple idea, but kind of a complicated idea because we don't think of it that way. But I say that because the value of money is only expressed in purchasing power terms. So the value in money goes up. That's the same thing as saying prices go down, right? So if productivity advances and prices go down, the money is getting more valuable itself. So here's where I go back to my original point. What if there was a new form of money that was created and it was essentially had all the properties that gold had that made it hard money, but it was actually even harder money than gold, and it was built for a digital age. So it was money native to the internet that you could transfer over the internet peer-to-peer with no middleman in between, and nobody could stop you. But it was also harder than gold because no government, no central bank could control it or print more of it. So in a future that is deflationary due to technology, but has a fiat currency as its unit of account, that currency can't capture the value of those productivity increases because the supply of it will constantly be increased, right? What happens if you have a fixed currency, a different form of money outside that system? No government can print it or control it, and it's native to the internet. But most importantly, its supply can't be inflated. If you were to own that money, that currency, when the massive productivity gains of AI come, technology gets better and more efficient and makes prices fall, they will fall like a rock relative to that fixed currency that cannot be debased or have more of it be printed. So if you hold that money, all prices fall forever in terms of that money. Now, we've actually seen that already since Bitcoin's inception. We think of Bitcoin as going up in dollar terms. The flip side of that is all prices of everything in the world falls in Bitcoin terms. If you've never seen the graphic or the meme of like the price of a house, was 500 Bitcoin, then it was 100 Bitcoin, and now it's 5 Bitcoin, right? Prices of everything else, including other scarce desirable assets that we think of as going up in fiat value terms, all those prices fall in terms of Bitcoin. In a future where, maybe houses are easier to build, like it doesn't matter, name your good or name your product that you want to buy or create, AI and robotics should make almost all of it better. Maybe you become a plumber, maybe that saves your job or staves us off for a while, but I wouldn't want to be in the game of trying to predict which jobs are going to get disintermediated by AI and robots and which aren't. Like, I wouldn't have predicted that creatives and lawyers and software developers would be the first ones that jobs that the AI would come for, right? So I don't really want to be in this game of guessing, spend a bunch of time becoming a plumber, and then, they, come up with some amazing robot technology that does some majority of what plumbers can do. Who knows? So go ahead and do that. Like, become a plumber if that's what you want to do. Or learn to use AI. Like, you're probably going to stave off the inevitable longer if you know how to use these AI tools. But that doesn't stave it off forever. That doesn't mean they're still not coming for your job eventually, if you're a knowledge worker of any kind, right? A white collar worker. So the same way that this guy said, well, my kids don't have to worry about it because I worked at Google and we're rich. This is how you protect your kids from a world where they're looking up and going, what jobs will even exist when I'm graduating college? Will it even be worth it to go to college, right? But what jobs will even exist when they're 20 years old, right? They don't even know. How do they predict that uncertain of a future? So if you hold Bitcoin, you protect your family's wealth because you gain those productivity gains of 8 billion people in the world, as Jeff Booth says, 8 billion people working to grow the wealth of 8 billion people. But you only capture that productivity gain if you hold a fixed supply currency, right? If you hold Bitcoin, the entire world is working to make your purchasing power go up because the entire world is working to advance technology, be more efficient, get more output from less input, innovate and compete to make all prices fall in terms of your Bitcoin. So what you want to do is get some Bitcoin now, study Bitcoin, and then buy Bitcoin in relation to the growth of your conviction in Bitcoin. What you want to do is get Bitcoin and know that nobody can debase that percentage of total Bitcoin that you own. You have, say you own 1 Bitcoin, you own 1/21 millionth of this thing that essentially can denominate the entire world's wealth, and eventually all the world's wealth will be denominated in Bitcoin. And as all the world's wealth increases, as productivity and technology increase, you own 1/21 millionth of all future productivity gains of humans, AI, and robots working to make all prices fall in terms of your Bitcoin. That's the solution. Become a plumber if you want, but you can just buy Bitcoin. That's the solution to this problem. And there's one other thing I want to address when they talk about like, what should we do? Like, what solutions are there out there? This is the last piece.
The International Monetary Fund has expressed profound concerns that generative AI could cause massive labor disruptions and rising inequality, and has called for policies that prevent this from happening. I read that in the Business Insider. So
Have they given any idea what the policies should look like?
No.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, if AI can make everything much more efficient and get rid of people for most jobs, or have a person assisted by AI doing many, many people's work, it's not obvious what to do about it.
Universal basic income? Give everybody money?
Yeah, I think that's a good start, and it stops people starving. But for a lot of people, their dignity is tied up with their job.
So this also drives me crazy. It's not about politics. It's not about UBI itself and the merits of whether that's a good or a bad thing. What it's about is, first of all, daddy government, come save us from this problem. There's nothing like first of all, the IMF, give me a break. The Fiat boot on the neck of the global south since its inception, using fiat as a weapon to control and suck the resources and wealth and hold down all these other poorer countries in the developing world for decades, are concerned about job loss. Like, give me a break. But then he says, well, what are they going to do about it? Like, what are the regulations? Exactly. There's no regulations government's going to put in place that says, oh, you're not allowed to lose your job to AI. It's like, it's not going to happen. But more and more people are going to call for that. And then, of course, they inevitably took them 10 seconds to arrive at universal basic income. So the government should give everybody money. Think from first principles for 2 seconds. Where does that money come from that the government's going to give everybody? The government runs a deficit now. So do we think in this future where 20% of people losing their jobs or whatever, the government's going to have more tax revenue? Like, all of a sudden they're going to have a balanced budget? So no. So the government will borrow or print that money. They will create that money out of thin air and then give it to people. And people will beg for that as the solution because they say, I don't want to starve. What happens when the government prints more money? Devalues the money that's already in existence. All the money you already hold. Devalues the very money they're handing you. They're giving you the free money and the money buys less the second they give it to you, basically. right? So prices continue to go up even more as they give you more free money. And then you need to ask for more free money. It just makes people more and more dependent on the government. I'm not like a hardcore libertarian or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just, think about the second and third order effects. It just basically makes everybody dependent on the government, and makes everybody beg for more and more free handouts and bailouts that by definition devalue. They're just a cyclical problem. It's like, give me more free money, and that money that they print devalues the money, what it can buy. It doesn't work, okay? That's not the solution. Also, we don't have to look that far back to see an example of that. Like what happened in 2020, 2021. Government gave out a bunch of free money. Did most normal people get better off because of that? Like, are there people who maybe like didn't starve in the very, very short term because of that? Maybe. But the inflation we've seen since then, and now everything is much more expensive now. Like, are you better off because you got a couple stimulus checks? I highly doubt it. And asset prices ballooned more because of all that stimulus and all that money. So your chance to grow your wealth or buy into, your ticket out of that is as a runaway train that's gotten even farther away from you, because real estate, stocks, everything's gotten way more expensive, or values have gone way up, because more and more of that newly printed money finds its way into scarce, desirable assets. Guess what? What if you'd bought Bitcoin with it? Yeah, you'd be a lot better off than just having a couple stimulus checks and then dealing with 25% cumulative inflation in the last 5 years. That's CPI, which is BS, and that's in the US, which is the strongest fiat currency of them all. So just imagine what the real inflation is that's not CPI, and what it is in other countries that have weaker fiat. And of course, they talk about the social issues of unrest and of people losing their jobs and losing their identity and needing to rely on the government, and wealth inequality gap. Like, there's a lot of scary potential consequences. So if you don't understand what I said about Bitcoin, why it's harder money, all those things, other videos you can watch on my channel. Here's one right here that's going to explain to you why Bitcoin is harder money, why it's better money, why it's digital gold, but better than gold. I don't see enough people talking about this, and I will continue to shout it from the rooftops. The way to protect yourself and your family from the potential, uncertain, coming deflationary bust of AI is acquire Bitcoin. And even if I'm wrong and it doesn't come, and this is fear-mongering, I don't know the future, right? It might not happen, I don't know. But guess what? You'll still be better off owning Bitcoin. So either way, buy Bitcoin. Because the number one thing you always want to remember, never forget, that Bitcoin is inevitable.